If you love Chevys, then this is the place for you. The Menards Chevy Series, where we tour the country to find the finest race cars and rides that are part of the bow tie breed. Welcome to this week's edition of the Menards Chevy Series, a show dedicated to Chevys of all different designs from every decade. We are coming to you today from US 131 Motorsports Park, just outside of Martin, Michigan. Hello again, everyone. I'm your host this week, Ted Jones, and let's get started with an award winner right away, the OPGI Original Award. This is Bob Banning's 1971 Chevelle. Gorgeous car. And we asked Bob, where did you find this? Was this a rusting out behind the barn deal?
It was in pretty rough condition. Had a small block 350 that had been punched out a little bit. But I started to restore it, and I thought I'm just going to have to do the whole thing. So we did a full rotisserie, frame off restoration, and when we got to the point where we started having parts, that's when I went to Original Parts Group, and they had just about everything I was looking for.
Now, we asked Bob, this car didn't come with a 454 originally, did it?
Well, I had a chance to get a 454 that was used out of a Suburban, and we checked it all out, and it was fine. So we punched that to 60 over, and now we're about 580 horsepower at the wheels.
This is a beautiful red color. Was it the color that originally came on the car?
No, I think it was green. When I got it, it was a different colored green, but I think it was off the stock green.
Green is for grass, trees, and money. Red is for cars, but exactly what shade of red is this?
It's called Active Red Metallic with Pearl. It's a 05 Corvette color.
One look at this car and you can see why it is our OPGI Original winner. Congratulations to Bob Lanting. Got any Z28 fans out there? You know, 1967, Chevrolet division came out with a thing called a Z28. Now, it was basically a 327 with a 283 crank, came out to 302 cubic inches. It was made for Trans Am racing, but in addition, it fooled the insurance company. See, the insurance company said if you had over 300 horsepower, you had a problem getting insurance on the car if you were a young man under the age of 25. So Chevrolet came out with 302 solid lifters, would run, okay, and they rated it at 290 horsepower. The insurance companies fell for it, and boy, did they sell these things. They handle very well. They're really hard to find. So many of them have been cloned, okay? They call them tribute cars or clone cars. This is a real one. This is a DZ. What do we mean by DZ? It's the DZ block. Okay, is the way that you can tell it's real. Let me show you a couple other things to tell you this car is a perfect restoration. You see this right here, okay, this was an anti-smog device. They had a thing down there they called the smog pump. It pumped cold air into the exhaust manifold to burn the unspent gases, and the idea was they were trying to prevent having pollution, and that was one of the early things they did. Now, so many people, when they restore these Camaros, forget about the smog bog equipment, is what we call it. Yes, cowl induction that actually worked. You see the hood seals right here down to the air cleaner. As a matter of fact, that looks like that's probably the original decal right there, and you'll see it was 302, that's true, 302 cubic inches, 290 horsepower. What a joke, folks. If you change the advanced curve in the distributor on these cars and did a few little simple things like that, they were closer to 400 horsepower. Let me tell you, these things would really haul the mail. This is a beautiful example because it's cold stone black. And the thing about a black car, it's got to be perfectly straight. You look down the side of this car, it is perfectly straight. What a gorgeous example. It's got the Hirsch shifter with the 4-speed, with the console, with the gauges in the console. It is a Rally Sport. What does the Rally Sport mean? Well, the Rally Sport was the one that had the hideaway headlights. They worked on vacuum motors, and the headlights hid away. A great example of a perfect restoration on a Z28. By the way, Russ Reist, that owns this car, says he will sell it. If you'd like to buy it, the price, $120,000. I love Corvettes. You know, in 1965, the hottest vet you could get was a 396. That's because Chevrolet didn't put the 427 in them until 1966. Now, that says 396, but that's not what it is. And that's not the unusual story about this car. See, Larry McCauley built this car, but it's not his. It belongs to his wife.
Well, she's hard to please. First of all, it steered hard, and all big blocks steer hard, so I had to change all the steering over to a rack and pinion like out of a new Corvette. Then she couldn't push the brakes, and I had to change it to power brakes. And then the steering wheel was too big. I've done a lot of, I built cars for other people that was a lot less trouble than my wife.
Now, like I told you a minute ago, that's not the 396. That's a 454 because the 396 apparently had disappeared out of the car when he got back from overseas.
We could not find the original block for the car, so we bought a new 454 crate motor. It's a roller motor, still 4 1/4 horse. My wife's a hot rodder. I'm telling you. We have other hot rods, and they're all 4-speed cars, and she drives every one of them.
We'll be back with more in Martin, Michigan after this.
This episode of the Menards Chevy Series is brought to you by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology. Original Parts Group, the world's largest source for GMA body parts and accessories. Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. And by Steel Rubber, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Time now for this week's Rock Auto Restored Award.
Let's get to another one of our awards right away. This is the Rock Auto Award that's going to go to Marvin Schilling. Now, from 2003 to 2006, Chevrolet made a pickup truck, I guess you would call it that of sorts, called the SSR. Marvin is 74 years old, been married 53 years, so why would you choose an SSR?
It's a hot rod pickup. That's a convertible with a Corvette motor and a 6-speed racing transmission. From the factory, when you got the 6-speed, they put a 3/4 ton rear end into it because the half tons wouldn't hold up. That's why you can pull a horse trailer and everything. Then when you go to a 456 gear ratio, you can pull about anything out.
Now wait a minute, 456, that's a drag racing gear.
Yes, it is. I'm an old fart, but it gets me going.
So you can see how the SSR resembles the 1953 Chevrolet pickup. So Marvin said, gee, I want a tailgate made that looks like it came off of a 53 Chevrolet pickup. Very difficult to make, but he got it done.
Because the 53 tailgate is perfectly flat. This curves this way and up and down, so he had to work it, and he cut the opening and he sat it right in and TIG welded it, and he says, I'd TIG weld a little, go away, TIG weld, because else it'd warp it. And he's very fussy, very, very fussy.
Now, in keeping with his love of the 1950s, Marvin had to have the seats rolled and tucked. Even the floor mats are tuck and roll. Let's take a look at another producer's choice. A 1956 Chevy that is like none other you've ever seen. Why is this car so different, Dan Duffy?
Because we chopped it in half and put it back together and made it dadgum shiny.
Now, when you say chopped it in half, you mean you cut it right out of the middle?
Yes, sir. From the back to the front, started the thickness of a saw blade to up here to 3 inches has been removed from the front on both sides.
Now, when you did that, you had to move a lot of other things. So let's go into the hood, for instance. Let's look at the front right here. That grill, something different about that grill.
We had to remove 2 of the cross-section bars, as well as the parking lights, and the bumper had to be shortened.
So the parking lights are not as tall as they used to be.
Oh, but half the distance. And if you notice the radiator and core support, it's also much shorter.
And then you had a problem with the hood emblem.
Yeah, we got everything finished, put the hood emblem on, and suddenly we realized While the car is sitting at a nice rake, the hood emblem's got a bad attitude upwards, so we reshaped it completely.
When you cut it down, you had to do something to the post?
We did. The front was cut 1 inch, the center post was cut a half, and then we notched it right there, just enough to get it to lay down.
Gorgeous. What is the color of the car?
Exalta, which is the old DuPont, Sunset Orange. It's a stock paint. There's nothing fancy about it at all. No custom mixing.
Not a Chevrolet paint.
No, actually it's a Mitsubishi.
Now let's go around back, and I saw this open right here a while ago, and I said, Dan, the gas cap's over here on a 56 Chevy. Everybody knows that.
That's true, it still is, but I had to fix this so that we had an opportunity to disconnect the power source, battery cutoff switch, and open my trunk lid, as well as a NASCAR-style plug-in to jump off any other car that's in trouble on the road.
So don't disappoint me. We still can put fuel in right here, right?
Oh, we still do that, absolutely. And it's got a half tank if you're ready to go for a ride, Ted.
Here's yet another Producer's Award. This is a beautiful 1955 Chevrolet. And the owner of this car, Calvin Suttle, has had this car for a long time.
About 44 years.
No.
Yes.
And was it sitting out behind the barn rusting down?
Yep, yes it was.
So you had to do a complete restoration?
Yep, complete frame off.
Took you 44 years to do it?
No, it only took us about 4.5 years once we started really pounding down the work.
And that was recently?
Yes.
Well, what was the holdup?
Money and kids.
Nice looking LS2 engine. Wait a minute. It says Chevrolet. It's an LS2. Why has it got a distributor in the front like a Ford?
It's a 2006 Corvette motor, and they patented that kit that goes in the front of it, and it has the Ford distributor, yes.
And when I asked Calvin, you've had the car for 44 years. It took you 4.5 years to get it done. You gonna do any more?
Oh, I have no more money.
We have plenty more eye candy for you, including a classy Camaro when the Menards Chevy Series returns. Stay with us.
Time now to take a look at our Duracell Copper Top Award winner.
Continuing to look at beautiful Chevrolets here in Martin, Michigan. Another award winner, the Duracell Crank It with the Copper Top Award that belongs to Ron Hepp. Now, this is a 1967 Chevrolet Impala Super Sport 427. But it's not the 427 you're thinking. This is not the 425 horsepower. This is very special. And you say a barn find? Well, it's kind of a barn find. You're not going to believe this story.
Yeah, I just sold a Corvette and I was looking for a new car, and I went down to the Chevy dealer on my lunch hour, and this car was being unloaded off the car haul. It was brand new at Lonsberry Chevrolet in Toledo, Ohio.
Now wait a minute, you're telling me you bought this car new?
That's correct. I bought it brand new when I was 19, and buying a big car was not popular back then.
And you kept it all that time?
No, I got drafted. I bought the car in June, and I got drafted in February, and so I joined the Navy and sold it. My cousin ended up with it, my first cousin, and when I got out of the service, I bought it back.
Sure, no kidding. What kind of condition was it in?
Well, Bob was going to do a frame off on it because it was about 5 or 6 years old, and he's a perfectionist, and he had it all tore apart. It was sitting in a barn, and I got pictures to prove it, and he was going to take it off the frame and redo it. And I bought it that way, but with my job, I was moving all over the state, and I needed a big extra garage to do that, so it sat in the barn for almost 23 years.
Here's the original Protecta plate with Ron's name on it, stamped up here, showing when it was delivered, when the warranty started and everything like that. Here's the inspection sticker from 1967, so you know the story's true. In looking at all the paperwork, he has original window sticker, retail of course. He has the bill of sale. On the bill of sale, it states that he's being given a $50 credit. He told him, I gotta pay cash for this car, I've only got $3,250. Well, the price is $3,300. So he noticed in looking at the list of options on the car that had $50 hubcaps. He said, tell you what, here's $3,250, take the hubcaps off and it's yours. He bought it just that way. Well, time for another producer's choice. You know what, folks? It's got to be a Tri-5, right? We did a 55 Chevy, a 56 Chevy. Got to do a 57, the most popular Chevrolet of all time, and the most popular color is this beautiful turquoise or teal color, some people call it. This is a gorgeous Chevrolet Bel Air. That was the top of the line back then. Got all the goodies with the fender skirts, the wide white walls, the twin matching radio antennas. Only one of them worked. But here's something really unusual inside this 57 Chevy. Take a look right there. Underneath the radio, that is a record player. Are you kidding me? Boy, that's really cool and very, very rare. Has a dependable 283 cubic inch engine, 220 horsepower, power glide transmission, everything you need to go cruising down the highway. But it has a real unusual story. You see, John didn't pick this out. Mearjam did. Let's meet him.
We found it in Auburn, Indiana at the big auction house. We went there, it went through the auction but did not sell, and I loved it, so I left a note on the windshield. Please call my cell number, and we made a deal.
And the guy called you?
He called.
All right, what did hubby say about that?
Oh, he says, don't you want to look a little more? I says, no. We had another 57 that burned up, and I was on a roll. I wanted to replace it.
Folks, I've been looking at Camaros, been doing car shows for years and years. This, without question, is one of the most accurate, perfectly restored 1969 Camaros I have ever seen. I've gone through it. All the safety marks are there. All the markings are there. Everything is dead on the money with this car. 350, 300 horse. You see the tire clamps. You see the original Delco battery. I could go on and on and on. All the safety markings are there. See on the side of the windshield motor right here. If you look on the frame, all the markings are there for that. The safety markings right here. You name it, it's absolutely been done perfectly correct on this car. So we had to get the story behind this car. We caught up with its owner.
We saw an ad in the paper for a 67 Camaro. So we drove to Rolling Prairie and ended up and looked at the car and ended up buying it. So we went back the next day with a trailer to pick it up. And jokingly, I said to the guy, I said, well, what else you have you want to sell me? He said, well, I got a 69 out in the barn. So we ended up looking at that and bought it too.
How long did it take you to restore this car?
10 months to the day.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's all day, every day. I do the best I can on them. You know, do a lot of studying, take a lot of pictures of other cars, research them. So I tried to put everything back just the way the factory had it.
The Menards Chevy Series offers a little of everything. And when we come back, we'll have a look at the nostalgia pro stock scene here at US 131.
This episode of the Menards Chevy Series is brought to you by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology. Original Parts Group, the world's largest source for GMA body parts and accessories. Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. And by Minties, dental treats your dog will love. Our final award is from Minties, available at Menards, along with other fine True Science products.
Welcome back to Martin, Michigan. Well, in case you haven't guessed, it's time for the Minties Award. You know, these are the dog treats that help your dog clean his teeth. More on that a little bit later. Right now, Mike DeYoung's 1970 El Camino. Boy, is it ever gorgeous. And we caught up with Mike and asked him, where'd you get this El Camino?
I bought it in Columbus, Ohio at a Good Guy shop.
Okay, but it didn't look like that.
No. Pretty stock at the time when I bought it. It didn't handle well. It handles a lot better now and it drives.
Tell me about the suspension.
QA1 coilovers all the way around. Four-wheel disc brakes with Willwoods. Rear, upper and lower control arms and sway bars.
Now, we noticed that Mike had replaced all of these stock gauges with some Autometer aftermarket gauges. There's a reason for that.
I cannot stand these stock SS gauges. You can't see them, can't read them, even with the lights on.
Mike picked the 70 El Camino because it came with a 454, and he thought an SS 454 El Camino would be cool. But then when he got it, he said, I need a little more horsepower, folks. It's not a 454 anymore.
Absolutely a 496, yes.
All right, how'd you do that?
On its third rebuild, it ended up being 60 over, quarter stroke.
Now, you know, if you saw the show from Memphis, you know that Brian Loans, thought minties were really cool. He didn't have a dog, so he decided to taste them himself, and he said they really are minty. So, nah, I don't think I'll do that today. I'll save that for my dog. Now, you know, a part of every one of these Chevrolet Manufacturer Series is the drag race. They have about 300 cars here entered in miscellaneous bracket classes, in addition to a bunch of junior dragsters. So we caught up with the track's general manager, Jason Peterson, to find out more about this outstanding facility.
I was back in 2001 where it was a total facelift, roughly 15,000 seating capacity.
It's an incredible transformation from the 131 I knew with John and Nancy Griffiths.
Right, yeah, no, and I actually raced back when John owned the track here as well. So yeah, it's a huge, huge transformation.
One of these shows has some sort of a special draw. Well, Jason picked out something very unusual. These are called Nostalgia Pro Stockers. Some of the greatest names in the business. Their cars have been recreated, and these guys put on a race like it used to be back in the Pro Stock days. For instance, Billy the Kid Step. Okay, that car was actually driven by Ronnie Sox. I can tell you stories about that car when he ran with me. Matter of fact, Billy Step used to race with me when I had my drag strips in Ohio, built by Alt and James Speed Shop. Boy, there's some memories. Then, of course, the famous rear Morrison car that was driven by the late Lee Shepard is recreated. And the Grump, Grumpy Bill Jenkins and his Grumpy's Toy. Warren Johnson's car is also here, so you begin to get the idea of what a neat deal this is and what a fun show it can be. Well, that about wraps it up for this week, folks. I'm Ted Jones. Thanks for joining us. So long, everyone. Next week, we head east to Pennsylvania at Maple Grove Raceway as the Menards Chevy Series continues to search for the best that Chevrolet has to offer. See you then.